Perfect. Good morning, everybody. And I'll start with a small introduction. You see my name on the slide, but I'm a VMware employee and I've used a template of Microsoft. So just to be clear, um, I'm a pre-sales for VMware almost 4 years and a half now, and I'm focused on digital workspace. So that means from a VMware point of view, that I focus on Workspace ONE on one side, but also everything that we do around virtual desktops, published applications, so everything that we do around Horizon. And the focus of today is mainly looking at Windows Virtual Desktop, but also how Horizon and how VMware can help customers onboard quicker, use all the benefits that Horizon brings to a hybrid cloud and so on. I prepared a slide deck, but it's an open call. What does that mean? If you have any questions, and Charlotte already mentioned, put them in the chat, but you can unmute yourself and interrupt me if you have any questions during the presentation. That's the benefit of having those kind of calls. So really do interrupt me and ask questions. I'm here for answering questions, and even the tech data team, so Marnix, Jerry or Charlotte can also help. So let's kick off. If I look at the agenda of today, I'll of course start a little bit with the VMware Vision and what it is all about. Thinking about what kind of challenges do we have in a digital workspace and what kind of challenges do we have with virtual desktops and why do we have virtual desktops at the end. A little bit of the 101 for a virtual desktop. What is a virtual desktop then? And what is then the Windows virtual desktop? What is specific for that kind of flavor? And at the end, okay, what do we bring together? What kind of value do we have if you look at Horizon Cloud on Azure from that point of view? And if you know VMware, we are already, I think 6-7 years ago, we announced this vision, any cloud, any application, any device. And that vision is started 7 years ago, and we are still working on that vision, but it's becoming a reality. It is a reality nowadays. We support private clouds, we support public cloud, we support native public clouds. So if you look at Amazon, if you look at Azure, if you look at Google, Alibaba, Oracle Cloud, IBM Cloud, there are a lot of clouds that we support. The edge computing and the telco is specific around any cloud also, where we also have a big support for that part. And any cloud is always a good thing to start with, but what do you run on clouds? Applications, so any type of application. We still have support, of course, the traditional, but we see more and more the cloud native applications, so everything that is related around Kubernetes, those Kubernetes clusters, cloud native apps, container-based. That is also the part that we support in our hypervisor and in any cloud strategy. And then if we look at any device, we support managing any type of device. It doesn't matter on what type of device you connect. We can connect that to any type of application, and we also can run that on any type of cloud. And at the end, it's all focused about any worker. If you don't have any workers, we can talk about AI and so on, but I would say any type of work style, any type of workplace, and we're all sitting at home probably. So I can imagine that the workplace is not as it used to be, but any workplace is supported. So remote work is here to stay, I think. So we need to think about how can we support that. And this is a session today where we can focus on that a little bit. And what I always say is fighting for the user or fighting for the employee, the any worker. What we see traditionally in the market is that a lot of organizations, and I think it will be even in going into the future, it will be even worse, or it's war for talent. I think talent already won, and the war is over. Talent can say and dictate the law a little bit, and organizations will need to fight for that user. And the best idea then is always think about employee experience. Start with that one, and all the rest will follow. And that is something that we focused on together with Microsoft. And we had a partnership. We announced that on last year already, and we're working on that every year. We're strengthening that relationship. And first of all, we focused on accelerating that cloud journey. If we look at Microsoft, Microsoft has one big, they have multiple, but the one priority that I would say is going to the cloud, going to Azure cloud, if it would be Microsoft's idea. And how can we accelerate that journey? So making sure that we do that together with VMware, we can use still the Azure cloud, but put VMware on top. So Azure VMware solutions, of making sure that they accelerate and use Windows Virtual Desktop on a faster pace. So really using us as an acceleration platform to Microsoft. Maximizing your cost savings, thinking about how can we make sure that we think about all the costs if your environment scales, thinking about power management, thinking about optimizing your Windows 10 with multi-session. So maximizing your cost savings as an organization. And last but not least is exceptional user experience, thinking about consistent user experience. It doesn't matter if he works in an on-prem environment or goes to Windows Virtual Desktop or goes to Azure VMware solutions for its VDI. It should be consistent. It should be a consistent user experience. And adding on top of that, you always need to think about experience, but also think about security at the end also. So thinking about identity management and adding those kind of flavors on top of that. And a couple of challenges that we see is where we help IT with is enabling that remote work. We're all working at home, and remote work is one side opening up the VPN tunnel and making sure that everybody can access his corporate resources, but also making sure that he can access a VDI, a published application, his SaaS applications that are not on-prem. And the first thing that we see when we enable remote work is capacity issues, scaling. Because if you see a question like, I have a customer with 50 users and next week they need 150 users being having remote desktops or Windows Virtual Desktop and so on. With Windows Virtual Desktop, you can scale immediately, but if you only have an on-prem environment, that's difficult. You need to buy hardware, you need to make sure that your capacity, your bandwidth is in order. So really there are potential scaling capacity issues there. If we look at the budget and resource constraints, if you need to buy new hardware for peak load, you need to have a budget for that and think about the resource that comes with that. You need to have IT operations that has time to put up all of those machines, that maintains, configures all those machines. And last but not least, security and compliance. If you never had a VDI and published application environment and you open up your VPN tunnels and you say, hey, let's go and access your corporate resources via VPN. Okay, what is the security and the compliance around that? So think about security and compliance and how can we improve that part. And if we look at work as one, a Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure, that remote work, that's really working from anywhere on any type of device. If we scale to Microsoft Azure, we can deploy and scale in minutes. So it's really the idea, if you need 50 extra users, we can spin up those machines and make sure that those 50 extra users can work immediately. Reducing costs. You do not need to spend a lot of money on your hardware, on your IT operations internally. That's all being set up by VMware and via Microsoft. And securing your user data, making sure that it's a VDI bubble, that you created a tunnel around it, that you create microsegmentation around it, and you really secure that end goal. And if we look at, let's talk a little bit about virtual apps and desktops. What is it really? Why is it useful at the end? So we see a couple of really interesting use cases around that. And the first one was security and regulation. If you think about the verticals around that, financial services, healthcare, specifically around healthcare, we do not want patient data to be public. So if you can create a VDI and publish that application around it and say, hey, you can only connect with that on a corporate machine and you can only connect to that published application when you're compliant, that's security and regulation. Elastic workforce. If you have a merger or an acquisition, you bring in a new workforce, or you need to spin up and scale for the moment. That is something that you can do from a virtualization point of view, because it's really, you do not need to buy extra hardware. You can just spin up extra machines, and at the end, it's something that you can really easily grow. Remote employees. If you think about even contractors, or bring your own device, they do not need to have a really corporate owned device. You can use a bring your own device and let them work from anywhere. And specialized workloads, we see this more and more because in traditional environments, you needed to buy power machines for 3D and engineering, AutoCAD, and those kind of specific applications. Well, these are also workloads that going in a VDI. And that is something that is easily maintainable, easy manageable, and so on. And where does VDI then fit? Well, if we look at an admin ratio, and these are numbers from a Gartner and IDC reports that I've got, an admin ratio around a PC and a desktop is around 1 admin for 250 PCs or desktops. For mobile, it's around 1 for 2,500. And for a VDI, you can really scale it easily, because it's with the main image, can deploy it like in a second. And the admin ratio there is 1 on 10,000. So you can imagine how much time you will save just going by a VDI fit. And are they still relevant today? That's a question that I get a lot nowadays. And the answer is, it's the year of VDI, and it's been the year of VDI almost 10 years now. Every year is the year of VDI, but it's only for those use cases. Think about the use cases that you need VDI or published applications for that scaling, that regulation, those specific use cases. These are the use cases that we still see in organizations a lot today. So virtual desktops and applications stay relevant. And we have a lot of benefits. Think about the security, think about operating system application and compatibility that you need. Think about remote access, thinking about compliance, thinking about the admin ratio that I just explained. Think about the low-cost virtual applications. There are indeed a couple of downsides. If you think about virtual desktops, what traditionally a lot of organizations try to do is say, hey, I want to do that, and I want to do cost saving with a VDI. But let's be honest, there's also some parts of VDI that you need to spend money on. If you do it in the cloud or on-prem, you need to have the right resources for that. So think about those things. So it's not always a cost savings exercise. It's about the remote access, that admin ratio, all the costs that you need to think about in total of the VDI exercise. You need some scale. I don't have any environments where you only have 10 users, for example. Most of the times you start with a bit of more users because you need image management and so on. But the moment you have that image, you can scale it out. They always say downside, skilled admin teams. I don't see that as a downside anymore, because it's getting easier and easier. It's almost a UI-driven system where you can almost click, next, finish, do that part. What we do see, it was as a downside, but not anymore. It's typically, it was on-prem, but of course with the public clouds that are coming up, if you look at Azure, but also at Amazon, they all have something around those specific virtual desktops and applications. And that's why, and it's also statistics from a Gartner report that I got, that by 2023, 30% of today's on-premise VDI users will access a workspace somewhere in the cloud using a desktop as a service. So if you combine the power of virtual desktop and all the flavors and the benefits, and you combine it with the SaaS or the DaaS approach, with the cloud approach, you will get a lot of more benefits. The downsides are going away. So that cost perspective, where you needed on-premise resources and you needed to buy hardware for peak level, this is going away. So those kind of things that is something that you need to think about if you shift to the cloud. And these are then the benefits around if you mix those two. It's a really quick turnaround. You can scale up and scale down really easily. It's a managed solution. You do not need to think about IT operations that need to spend time on IT, on managing that hardware, managing patching. All of those things will be managed. It's an OpEx model because you only pay for what you use. And it's global scaling. If you have an international company and they want resources also in America and they want those kind of things, it can scale easily to global parts. And where does that Windows Virtual Desktop then fit? And that is something that we think about a lot. So Windows Virtual Desktop is available today. And if we look about, or if we look at a couple of things that are on the slide here, the first thing is Windows Virtual Desktop is the only Windows 10 multi-session available. Windows Virtual Desktop, so the multi-session part is not available on-prem. It's only available in Azure. It will provide a full desktop and authentic experience for user at every level. So you can have those specific workloads, but you also have the typical knowledge worker or more a typical frontline worker that only needs one application. It will reduce your cost and time spent. You do not need to spend time on managing your on-premise environment, so you can use everything in Windows Virtual Desktop. What we see traditionally in a lot of organizations is that they do a hybrid approach because they sometimes have a lot of applications that are still internal, the application database and those kind of things that stay internal. And how can we make sure that you have the best connectivity? Then you put your VDIs close to that workload. It's simplified management at the end, making it as easy as possible. When you create an image, when you add your application stacks, your user profile, it will be on the fly and it's really easy. And deploy and scale in minutes. The moment you want a VDI or Windows Virtual Desktop to be spun up, it is really scale in minutes. If you need 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100, it can scale in minutes. And a couple of benefits around that. First of all, the multi-session part, that's the only part that you get in Azure, but also still supported for Windows 7 and Windows 2008, so extended support on that part. So that's a good idea if you still have customers with typical legacy applications. Well, that is something that still is supported in the Azure platform. And Windows 2008, if they still need published applications and they still need support for that one, they can use Windows 2008 R2 in the Azure cloud. And it is also, most customers are eligible for that Windows Virtual Desktop. So if you think about the licenses that a customer has, well, they can already use it. If you look at the E3, the E5, so it's already covered. So if you talk to a customer and you talk about Windows Virtual Desktop, well, 9 out of 10, they have that license eligibility that they can use it and already spin it up. What's not being, of course, included is the pay-per-use. You need to pay for your machine when he spends resources. When you start consuming resources, you need to pay for those resources. The good thing is, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, is you need to think about power management then. You only need to pay for resources that you're really using. And if you look at the high-level architecture, it's all, the first top level is, of course, managed. The first down level is managed, so the foundation is managed by Microsoft. So the compute, the storage, the networking, that's all managed by Microsoft. That's the virtual infrastructure layer that you already know. Everything behind that is Active Directory Identity Management. So we're linked to the Active Directory, Azure Active Directory Identity Management Service. And then at that moment, you can go in your subscription, and that's under your control. These are your machines, so Windows 7, your Windows 10, your multi-session, your remote apps, and that's all managed in your Azure subscription. And then you can start using existing tools, of course, like Configuration Manager to manage those Windows Virtual Desktops or those machines. And you can also connect to your on-premise resources. So with a tunnel to your on-premise resources that you can still connect to your applications and so on. You always need to think about bandwidth on that one. And what is then managed by Microsoft, again, your web access, your diagnostics, your gateways, your load balancers, your broker, your management. That part is also, again, managed by Microsoft. And it's really delivering a compelling value for customers. If we look at it, we can deliver Windows Virtual Desktop with user experience, your security, all the things that are already mentioned from a benefits point of view. And they really have a strong partner ecosystem. And that strong partner ecosystem is, of course, I'm VMware, so it's of course us. And the main reason why I say this, and also Microsoft acknowledges this, if you have, when are you in need of that strong partner ecosystem? That's you can go Windows Virtual Desktop native, but there are a couple of disadvantages on that part, and I will explain a little bit later. But what we see is, as a partner, is if you want to scale with multiple desktops, scaling above the 200, 250, depends on what kind of use cases there are behind. If you want to scale with multiple type of images, multiple type of organizations underneath, even multiple tenants, maybe, if you have acquisitions and so on from a Microsoft point of view, and you come in with an acquisition and they have their own Azure subscription and their own Azure tenant, then you all probably need to maintain two environments. So this is where the partner ecosystem comes in. We can bring that multi-tenancy. We can bring that scaling availability. We do automation on that part. We can have that hybrid approach. So that's why there is a strong partner ecosystem from that part to help Microsoft scale to the right level for customers. And if we look at then work as one, VMware Horizon Cloud on Azure is really bringing that value to those customers. And this is a little bit the high level architecture or the high level capabilities of what VMware Horizon can bring to the table. If we start with hybrid approach. So of course, Microsoft Azure is the main focus of today, but we support VMC on AWS. We support partner solutions like IBM or any partner like Sentia or so on that has VDI solutions. We support that. And we, of course, still support our on-premise solution. And then you have a Horizon Universal Control Plane, and that Horizon Universal Control Plane connects to all of those environments. You can connect to your Azure tenants, multiple Azure tenants if needed, if a customer has those. You can connect to your on-premise, and then you can start doing image management. So, okay, I need an image to be deployed, and that's my golden image for this pool. This is an image for another pool, and you do that image management centrally, so via the universal control plane. Same for application management, creating your app packages and adding those to any type of cloud. We have the idea that you need to package once and you can use it on any type of cloud. So that means if we package an application, of course, Microsoft has a different disk format than we do. If you know a little bit of the technology, we have VMDKs and Microsoft uses VHDs. So the application package, if we package, we can deliver those type of disks to the public cloud vendors. And then you can use that in your images. Same for monitoring, so high-level monitoring. Across those clouds again, making sure that you get insights in your on-prem environment, but also what are my users doing in Windows Virtual Desktop? Is the performance okay? What is the bandwidth? Are they having issues? Can I kick those users out and make sure that they log off? Those kind of things. And then everything around lifecycle, your agents, your connection servers. How do we need to update those? Well, there's a lifecycle management on that part. And universal brokering. That was the first one in the line, but we just want to mention it as the last part. If a user connects, you want it to be as seamless as possible. He doesn't want to connect to one connection server for Microsoft Azure and another one for on-prem and another one for VMC on AWS. No, when a user connects, we will broker him to the right kind of solution where his VDI is hosted. So that is really what universal brokering is all about. And we have then a little bit of the management responsibilities. If we look at the Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure, you see that everything that is managed by Azure is the hardware, and there's not really a software-defined data center. There's no vSphere layer in there. Then we'll have Horizon infrastructure, and that's mainly the components like connection server that will be hosted in Azure and will be maintained by VMware. And then you have desktops and applications, and that's the only thing that you need to manage from that point on. Horizon 7 on AVS, what does that mean? That's the Azure VMware solution. So that's vSphere in Azure, and that's your hardware layer that will be managed by Azure. That's also your software-defined data center. So your full vSphere layer will be managed by Azure, by Microsoft. And then the top layer, Horizon infrastructure, is really like you would set up a Horizon on-prem environment, so the Horizon 8, and put that on an on-prem environment, but the same capabilities like you would have in a vSphere layer. And then these are the things that you need to manage. And of course, if you go the full way in an on-prem environment, you need to maintain everything. You can start with your hardware, your software-defined data center, your Horizon infrastructure, and your desktops and apps. And this is how it would look like then in Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure. We start with the Horizon control plane. That is also being managed in, that is also being set up in Azure. And we create, and we do that in about, I think, between 30 minutes and 45 minutes, the moment we have connected your Azure subscription. We create a small jump box. And then at that moment of time, everything is being set up from that jump box. We create our pod managers, we create our unified access gateways, we use the load balancers, and this full part is all being set up in an automated way. The only thing that you will need to do at a certain moment then is create your images. So the moment you need to create an image, you go to your image management, and you will select your operating system from the marketplace from Microsoft Azure. So you will choose your Windows 10 multi-session, or your Windows 7, or a Windows 10 normal, so single session, and you will start doing your image management. Your application management and so on will be on top of that. So also really good to know, if a user connects, he never goes via that control plane. He always goes directly to his unified access gateway. So he will connect to Microsoft Azure, his identity part, and then he will go to the unified access gateway to connect to his VDI that is being run at that level. So the Horizon control plane is only being used for administration purposes. If we look at then from the architectural point of view, a bit of the same slide, but I've added a couple of things from our point of view. So what is still being managed by Microsoft? That's the bottom layer again. So compute, storage, and networking. What's being managed by the customer from your tenant point of view? So your Windows imaging and those kind of things. And what's being managed then by VMware? It's everything around Horizon Cloud infrastructure. That's your unified access gateway, your brokering, your application resources, and the Horizon control plane. And then again, what's need to be installed or can be an HTML5. So you have a Horizon client for any type of operating system, or you can use the browser to connect to any type of VDI in the backend. What we also add then is monitoring, for example, to manage all of your environments. From an administrator point of view, you can not only manage your environment at Microsoft point, but also go to your prem environment and so on. And how does it look like then? These are the steps that need to be done, and it's quite easy. What I will do after the session also, Charlotte, I sent you a short, it's not a short one, but it's a colleague of mine, and what he did, he subscribed to Azure. He created a test account or a trial account in Horizon Cloud, all from scratch. and he showed in about an hour video on what steps he did to get this up and running. And it's a really informational video because it explains all the steps. So these two things, he started really from these two steps. And then you need to, of course, think about your Azure subscription and those kind of things. And the moment you are there, you can start deploying your nodes. You bind it with your domain, you integrate it with identity or your single sign-on tools. You start creating your custom images, and from that point on, you can start entitling your users. And just to want to explain, okay, what are the benefits then? What do you get extra with VMware? And with Windows Virtual Desktop, you can already start with existing Microsoft licenses for Windows and RDS. You still have your support for Windows 7 and so on. You have your Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session part, and you can use your existing Azure investments and of course, your discounts at Azure pricing. What do we bring to the table is remove need for third-party tools. What do I mean with that? For example, monitoring. That's the first one. We add access management. So we add a layer of single sign-on to your on-prem environment, but also to your cloud environment. And that access environment is integrated with your Azure Active Directory. So we still use your Azure Active Directory as your main source, but we will deliver conditional access on that point. It's hybrid. So it means if a customer already has an on-prem environment, we can help them scale to the cloud and increase that time to value and giving them a single management interface. Just think about if they need to maintain two environments, how much time does it take to keep up to date with the two environments and making sure that you do training, but also making sure that you spend time and update one environment and update another environment. If you can do that via one single management interface, it will save you time and money. Management and cost optimizations. So for example, thinking about power management. Advanced power management is one of the things that we add to the mix. And the main reason behind that is really thinking about machines that do not need to be spun up when a user is not working on them. So if they do a log off, we shut down the machine, and from that moment on, we will make sure that that user is not being billed anymore because there's no consumption. But also, if we see machines up and running between 8 and 5 during the day, that's okay. If we see machines running between 8 and 4 in the morning, that is something that we can also do and say, these machines, let them go down because nobody is using them, and we'll make sure that you do not need to pay for them. And enhanced user experience. If a customer already has Horizon, they can use the same clients that they already have. So the Horizon client and the HTML5 access, Teams optimizations. So what does that mean? We optimize for team, and that's an integration that we did together with Microsoft. So we were a little bit late on the track, but that's the main reason there is we didn't develop something ourselves. We worked together with Microsoft, and we're using their APIs in the backend to optimize that part. And how do we do that? We get the audio and video out of the Teams part. And when a user connects from a client, we will connect user 1 and user 2, the audio and video directly from client 1 to client 2 and not via the VDI. So that is something how we solve that Teams optimization part. And adaptive protocols, you have the choice. You do not need to choose RDP alone. We have Blast, of course, where we optimize our protocol for low bandwidth and high latency. So that is something that we do from that point of on to make sure that you have the best type of user experience at the end. So the customer starts here, but at the end, you really want to cross the chasm and make sure that you are at the other end. So in a nutshell, this is what you get from the Microsoft point of view. with the default things that you would expect, and we add on top flavor on that part. How do we do that from a license point of view? We have one license, and it's called Horizon Universal License. And the Universal License gives you entitlements to cross the hybrid cloud. That means that if a customer of you has an on-prem environment and he also wants to use Windows Virtual Desktop, you can have Horizon Universal, and that user will be entitled to use that on-prem environment, but he can also go to that cloud environment. And it doesn't matter what type of cloud, and this focus, of course, Microsoft, but if the customer also is looking at Amazon and he is using Amazon resources, that is also something that is supported. What is included in that license? Of course, our app volumes. That means that everything that around app packaging, so package once and delivered to any platform, that is something that we do. That cloud monitoring, monitoring and analytics across all of those deployments, looking at capacity and resource reporting and those kind of things, making sure that you can quickly troubleshoot. Dynamic Environment Manager is really our tool to integrate with FSLogix to make sure that you have the best kind of user experience. So profiling, management capabilities around those user settings, application settings. That is everything that Dynamic Environment Manager does. And at the end, universal brokering, making sure that you have one access point and that a user can connect to any type of Horizon environment. And just a couple of highlights, and I'm not going to run through all of those. You get the slides afterwards, but it starts with bring your own Microsoft Azure infrastructure. So all Azure VM types that are best suited for those desktop workloads. It supports those encrypted disks. It's from our point of view, it's a fully cloud-based management. The only part that is supported for Windows 10 multi-session, but also for those Windows 7 and those Windows 2008 R2s. You can have those dedicated and floating VDIs. We support those graphics from Azure and vSeries. Multiple protocols, so BLAST, PC over IP, power management, something to optimize and to make sure that you can do load-based and schedule-based and optimizing your costs. Your cloud monitoring for any type of desktop capacity and usage at the end. And a lot more. So thinking about the multi-cloud, thinking about NSX, so micro-segmentation, integration with our compliance and conditional access from Workspace ONE. So really adding a lot of things to Microsoft Azure and giving those enterprise capabilities to those users. And some feedback that I got from the field, simplified management, easy integration and rapid deployments. First of all, the rapid deployment. There was a customer that tried Windows Virtual Desktop and they were saying, hey, we need some help. And it was one of our partners that did that. And they said, let's try the Horizon Cloud. And then like 45 minutes, an hour, they already could start with imaging and application development and application management on that part. So really rapid deployments. Simplified management, those power management and making sure that you do not need to have scheduled scripts on that part. We will do that from UI and that point. Reconnecting, disconnecting, those kind of things. So really simplified management and easy integration. We integrate, of course, with Azure AD, but we can use their existing Active Directory. We integrate with other players on that part also. And Workspace ONE Access is included, so you can connect to multiple environments and deliver conditional access on that part also to make sure that a customer or a user can connect to an environment on-prem and also connect to environment anywhere in the cloud, and that we deliver conditional access on that layer. So I'm nearing to the end. I would say unleash your IT superpowers and go to techzone.vmware.com. It's our main website to discover everything around digital workspace, but there are a lot of chapters around Horizon Cloud on Azure, and you can add that on top of that. So a couple of critical learning assets that you could go through. First of all, hands-on labs. If you do not know hands-on labs, I would say go there and check them out. And of course, everything around TechZone, and of course the slides will be shared, so you can click on the links and check them out at that point. And for the rest, I would say last minute, I would like to thank everybody. If there are any questions, I'm open for all the questions that you might have. No questions. If you have any questions afterwards, and you or maybe you do not dare to ask questions now, just to give you the idea, there are no stupid questions. The only thing that would be stupid is a stupid answer, and then the only one that looks stupid is myself. So you can ask questions, but if you want to ask questions afterwards, just send them to Marnix, to Cherry, to Charlotte. And I think Charlotte will share the slide deck. My email address is in there, so you can just contact me and we can have a discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Frederik. Marnix, I think you would maybe like to add something?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to add a few more details on the Azure cost reduction part. As some of you might know, there are two main elements that allow you to reduce your costs. So is either purchasing upfront Azure reservations, which cover your VM compute costs. If you commit for a 1 or 3 year term on certain set of virtual machines, in turn, Microsoft allows for a discount on the consumption costs of those VMs, and they can go up to 70% versus bill per hour. And then additionally, if you want to set up some for one reason or the other, some Windows servers, VMs in Azure, you can use your customers' Windows Server licenses, which they purchased prior for on-prem installation. You can use those, reuse those licenses on the condition that they are covered by an active SA contract. That's it.
Okay, thanks. If there are no further questions, I would like to thank Frederik for the clear presentation and to you all for being present. And yes, as mentioned before, I will send you the slide deck and the recording.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.